Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch All Creatures Great and Small.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about this. It is the 1970s/80s TV series that made me think that I wanted to live on a farm in rural England and deal with livestock. And only then or later did I realize that I don't like work and I don't want to stick my hand up a cow's rectum, which was a wise choice, I think.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the original TV series of All Creatures Great and Small, not the one that is being broadcast now, which I haven't even seen, but I can tell you it's inferior because they didn't need to remake it. The first one was perfect. This is the TV, both of the series. What's the plural of series? I don't even know.
You're the English major here.
Don't even. Yeah, why? I'm asking. I don't even know. Both versions of the series, there we go, are based on a series of books written by the author James Herriot, and the books are based on his actual experience as a vet in Yorkshire. His actual name was Alfred White, I think. And so everything has been through like several filters. So this is like a game of telephone about what it's like to be a vet. But the TV episodes are fairly faithful to the books, as I recall. And I don't know how faithful it is to his actual life. Well, it's different names, first of all. So not all that faithful, I guess. But anyway, this series, it ran on PBS. I need hardly say, if I was able to watch it as a child, it was clearly on PBS. It was one of those BBC imports that came to the US, and so clearly it had the stamp of approval. There were 3 seasons in, I guess, 1978, 79, and 80. And then there were 4 more seasons starting in, I think, the late 80s, early 90s. The first 3 seasons are based on the books themselves, and the second part is just made up stories, which is always a bad sign because I don't know. But they brought. Oh, I think so.
Okay.
Like you've got the source material, use it. But they brought back the same actors and the same characters, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But so this is all tales of hijinks in veterinary medicine. So before I get into this, so I have been telling you about this for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. Is this the first time that I've actually shown it to you?
No.
Okay. What else did I show to you, and when was it?
Well, once upon a time.
Yes.
A thoughtful,
talk yourself up here.
A thoughtful partner of yours sought out and found the discontinued, the like no longer in print.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The DVD set of the certainly the first series. I don't know how much it actually was. I don't remember, and we can't find it now. So it's somewhere in a box somewhere. And we watched at least the first 2 episodes, maybe the first 3 episodes, and so that would have been like minimum 15, 16, 18 years ago.
Yeah, you don't watch things with me anymore that I
So it's been at least 15 years.
Okay.
Since we watched it, but yes, that is my total knowledge of this.
Okay,
is back when I used to give super thoughtful gifts before you became complacent with your relationship with me, and I was pretty sure you weren't going to leave.
Well, once you put a ring on it, it was going to be very hard for me to leave. So you have been very good at finding gifts. I don't know if you can top the annotated Anne of Green Gables. That was pretty good. That's pretty good. And a couple years ago, you gave me a memoir about someone walking the Camino, which was very good. Which it was one that I hadn't come across. So like you do pretty well. Sometimes. You're better at gifts than me, I think.
Perhaps.
So anyway, all right. So so this is not your first exposure to this, but let me tell you, like I was steeped in this as a kid. To the point that we had a whole like family culture around it. I think my mom felt like this was one of the few shows that she could just leave on and let me watch it, and she could go in the other room and do something, and I was not going to see anything weird. Although I apparently did run screaming to her when there was a cow mooing, because I found that scary. But I was 2, so... no word on if I was scared by people putting their hands up the cows' butts and pulling their hands out covered in fecal matter or in the vagina and its other thing. I don't know, but just the cows mooing scared me. But we loved the opening credits, which are just shots from one of the episodes, but there's a point when the 2 vets are driving together and there's a car in there's a dog in the backseat of the car, and therefore this was called the Dog in the Car Show in our household. Clearly, like, this is how toddlers name things.
Yep.
And there's a point when they're driving down this country road and there's a low point in the road and it's got a puddle there and there's a splash, and this was very exciting to me at age 2. So deep in the family lore is Dog in the Car Show. Yeah. So I have very tender memories of this, even though I haven't seen a full episode like for this. And then the last time when you and I watched it together, and before that I was single digit ages. Yeah. But it's very sweet and tender. So like I said, the series is fairly faithful to the books. There's a set of, I think they're published as a set of 4 books in the US. In the UK, they were packaged differently, and then they repackaged them for the US. But these were the kind of books that, in my mind, like everybody's grandma had, because they're like kind of folksy, but they're safe. And it's like there's a little bit of romance and a little bit of drama, but just enough. And it's a very grandma book. Like, does this seem like something that your grandmother would have read, or your grandma wasn't as much of a reader as mine was?
She was something of a reader. She consumed those like Reader's Digest condensed books.
Oh yeah,
yeah. She had a lot of those.
Well,
so she was a reader, but she may or may not have had this.
Yeah, but you say Reader's Digest. Yes, I think the Reader's Digest sort of ethos loved the James Herriot ethos, because since then there have been a lot of, James Herriot's baby animals, James Herriot's farm, James Herriot's dogs, this and that. The Wikipedia page for the All Creatures Great and Small franchise says that there's a theme park.
Wow.
When I clicked over, I was very excited. I was like, is there going to be, like, do you go through the cow's butt? Yeah. It's like Space Mountain, except it's a cow's butt. No.
Do you sit in the car with the dog?
With the dog. In the splash. It's like a water ride, the splash.
Right.
No. An amusement park is way an exaggeration. Yeah. It's basically just the building that held the vet practice and his apartment, and it's a museum. It's not a theme park at all. But now I'm like, I need someone to build a James Herriot amusement park, please.
It's not a theme park. It's a themed park.
Oh,
yeah. That's where they got you.
Or is this one of those British things? Like, they say pants, they mean underwear. Right. They say chips, they mean fries. Like, in the theme park just means museum in the UK.
Are you not amused?
Right.
That's the very table where Tristan misplaced the ledger. Are you not amused? It's an amusement park.
Tricky Woo himself has set foot on these very flagstones.
Right. That's a tuft of Tricky Woo's hair right there.
That's the anal gland that he had to... Yeah.
That's a pure excretion from his anal gland right there.
Yeah.
A handwritten letter by Mr. Tricky Woo.
Bears a remarkable resemblance to Mrs. Pumphrey's handwriting, but we don't talk about that. No.
I noticed you didn't write Tricky Woo on the cast of characters. That's an oversight.
Yes, I know. And
perhaps the best character.
Yes. Well, here, we're going to get to Tricky Woo in a second. Yeah, I said when this part came up, like, this is my favorite part of all this, and I aspire to be Mrs. Pumphrey. So the 4 books here, that were published in the U.S. It's All Creatures Great and Small, All Things Bright and Beautiful, All Things Wise and Wonderful, the Lord God Made Them All, which, if you are a church goer, are the lines to a hymn. So that's another reason it's a grandma book. Like, well, it's a good Christian book, it's quoting scripture, So they start with James as a recently graduated vet.
What year is it?
Like 36,
so say
37.
Like 1920s, 1930s would be 30s would be my guess.
I think the 30.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah, it's that England between the wars that has inspired like 10 times more movies and TV shows and books than, well, not as much as World War II, but this would be second to anything else. So he's just graduated from vet school, and we see a newspaper headline that says, like, this is bad economy, whatever. And
but it specifically says, bad time for new vet graduate.
Well, that was a vet magazine.
I know, but it just, if you don't know that at first, you're like, what a weird headline just to put in the local paper.
They were writing stories about everything, weren't they?
Oh, a troubling report here. It's quite difficult for vets to get a job.
So he's interviewing at this practice in North Yorkshire, which is I did not know for some reason. I thought it was in the western part of England near Wales. No, it's northeast, right near Scotland, which is why
I was going to say, I always think of it as being north, but I couldn't point to it on a map.
Yeah, I had to look at a map, so it's very close. And he's interviewing with Siegfried Farnan, who is played by Robert Hardy, who is a great character actor. You've seen him in a bunch of things, a bunch of Masterpiece Theater type things. But he was also in some version of Emma and played Emma's father, I think. But anyway, if you've watched a lot of British TV, you've seen him.
He's got real Doctor Who energy.
Funny you should say that.
Yeah.
His younger brother, who doesn't show up right away, is played by Peter Davison, one of the early Doctor Who's. Yes. And I, as a young kid, thought that Tristan is the younger brother, was kind of foxy. And so, but now, like, Peter Davison has said some pretty out-of-pocket stuff. And I'm like, oh, Tristan, you can't do that. You're turning into a douchebag. I don't like it. But anyway, he interviews with Siegfried and is often offered the job quickly. And then we just get into, hijinks ensue. There's lots of run-ins with this farmer, and this farmer's quirky, and that one is demanding, and this one is cheap, and this one is, we're going to have a tender moment where they have to put down a dog, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's all like, each story is one chapter from one of the books, you can tell. They're kind of crammed all together. Like, it's not, the episodes are not constructed in the way that you're used to, where there's like an A plot and a B plot and a C plot. Yeah. And like, we pick up this thread from last week and then we drop this.
It's British television does this sometimes. It's more of like, we're just telling you a story. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a real weird place to end this first episode because we like just set up a conflict. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Come back next week. But
it's not to minute 55.
But it's not like an intentional cliffhanger. It's literally just like we planned this out as like a 4-hour movie, and now we're splitting it up into 25-minute segments or something. Yeah,
yeah. So the thing we're talking about is at the very end of episode 1. James has to go to the Lord's manor and look at a horse, and he's dealing with the farm manager. I don't know, not the Lord himself,
the stable manager or something,
who is basically a dick. Yeah. And James is like, I'm sorry, your horse has a twisted bowel or something like that, and there's no cure for it. And although every time he talked about there not being a cure for things are very hard to treat, I was like, I wonder how it would be today. Is it treatable? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get you off the path you're on here, but that's sort of one of the premises of these first couple episodes. Like, they literally talk about that. Like, they talk about the current advancements, and they talk about like what we can see these things. Mm-hmm. Like, we should have a vaccine for this. We know what causes this. We just don't have a treatment for it. So it's like, there's almost an exploration of the frustration of an early vet, an early 1900s vet of saying like, I can tell you exactly why this happens. I can diagnose this twisted bowel or this whatever perfectly.
I can't fix it.
But I can't fix it, and this should not be the case. Like, it's almost a light, like, secondary or third tier premise of the show. Like,
okay, put it this way. I hope that by this point, yes, we do know how to fix these things. Yeah. But And James is like, I'm sorry, there's nothing to be done. We should put the horse down. And the farm manager is like, no, this is fixable. He's just got a bellyache. He's, and James is like, nope, sorry, and shoots the horse and puts him out of his misery. And the guy is like, I'm going to call the lordship. He's going to be very, they can have an autopsy on the horse. And he's like, it'll prove you wrong. And then you'll never work again. And then break.
Yeah.
The episode
and
break.
It's kind of like, on the one hand, it's sort of like a modern cliffhanger,
but they don't handle it that way.
But on the other hand, all of the surrounding bits of it aren't like a modern cliffhanger. It's really just they were just well, this is as good a place to stop as any.
Yes.
So let's just stop it here.
There's not the dramatic sting of a dramatic chipmunk moment of Well, the whole thing we were noticing is very much of its time in terms of filming quality and techniques, and it feels very British to me. There's a clear difference in film quality between the scenes outside and the scenes inside. The scenes inside are clearly just on a sound stage, and there's no background noise or
it's natural light versus artificial light. It's PAL format, which is a different resolution and a different frame rate than what we're used to. So it's part of the reason soap operas look kind of weird, but not it's not the same thing. But it's that same kind of thing. It's it's a different format. It's a different medium. And when you convert it for NTSC for American televisions, it's just not quite. Something just doesn't quite look right about it. It's a little. Some of the artificial lighting is a little not there. There's a lot of weird reflections and stuff that you see. But it's not unique to this show. It's
no.
It's a byproduct of British television. While you were watching this show, I was watching more explicitly comedic shows like Faulty Towers and Are You Being Served, which are also on PBS and also from England, and all also have this same quality level issue. But you are right. The starkest difference is between exterior shots and interior shots. And that's when they're going from natural light to the artificial light.
Especially when they have a conversation outside and then they walk in and are continuing the conversation from what's supposed to be 10 seconds ago, and it looks totally different. And it's not bad. It's just very much, you're like, oh yeah, this is the 70s. Okay.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing that you notice, but it doesn't take you out of it.
Yeah.
And in a certain way, it's almost welcoming. If I put on an old episode of Are You Being Served, when it hits me with that British look, that distinctive, I'm talking about, that obvious conversion, the color, the colors seem muted, something just doesn't seem quite right about the quality of the light and the film and all these things. It's almost oh yeah, in the same way that people will say there's a warmth to vinyl, to listening to music on vinyl. There's a certain warmth and welcome quality to watching old British television.
Well, it's a kind of nostalgia, right? It's you have if you could find the exact, company that made the crackers that you had as a snack in kindergarten, they would be the best thing at not actually all that good, but just it hits the memory muscle.
Oh yeah, no, there are things to this day that I will eat that are from my childhood that are, that I can't argue are objectively good. Liver pudding, I can't argue Goober grape, the peanut butter jelly mixed in one jar. Objectively, not as good as a good quality peanut butter and a nice jelly, but there's some nostalgia about that makes it. Makes it different.
What it's clicking in your brain is not taste buds; it's something else, and it's some other primal. But it is fascinating to me, by the way, how different TV formats, and I don't know if it's the lighting or the number of cameras or the ratio or whatever, they just signal sitcom, drama, documentary, whatever. And if a show were to use the quote wrong one, it would be so disorienting, right?
So there was a show. What was it called? And depending on what character you were following, one of them, it was shot like a sitcom, and then the other one shot like a drama.
Are you thinking of Kevin Can Fuck Himself?
Maybe.
It was on AMC. It's in the last couple years.
That might be it.
I've been wanting to watch that because
yes,
it's the main character is a wife who's got like sort of a schlubby husband, and half of it is like, oh, he's so silly, ha ha, and then the other, like, as soon as he leaves, it'll change.
Right, it changes to
atmosphere,
more of a cinematic style. Drama show, like it goes from like a Married with Children to a Desperate Housewives kind of thing,
and it's really telling how much all that stuff, the lighting and the framing and all that stuff makes a difference in the story.
100%. Yeah.
But anyway, that's not about all creatures great and small. So Siegfried, he stresses me out because even in the 2 episodes that we saw, he has a terrible memory. Like he tells James to arrive at this time and doesn't show up for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh, you see, like I feel like they're clearly sending the message that he's like manic or, like there's something going on there.
I think there has to be. And apparently the real life person that he's based on was way worse.
No,
according to I think the real life James, aka Alfred White, his actual son, wrote a memoir like what it was like to be James Herriot's son. And he had met the real life Siegfried, and he was like, he threw things, and he was, but like, and they show him one day, he's like, oh, James, you need to go out to all the calls that come in overnight. And then the next day he's like, no, James, you shouldn't do that. Blah, 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 blah. And James is like, but you told me.
Yeah. Well, but also there's that whole little thing was Siegfried was upset that James had told someone they would come out at any hour.
And so Siegfried
was upset because he had to go out. Yes. And then the next day, a call came in that James said, well, that's not important. That can wait till the morning. And Siegfried is like, we must go to every call, James. Always, every call. There's no excuse.
Siegfried gets the earful about it. So
it is this sort of, and that's one example of him, like very sternly telling him one thing and then immediately changing.
Yes. Yeah. He's funny as a character, but in real life, I could not handle it.
Oh yeah. And his, there's a point where Tristan comes home and he's failed one, Siegfried thinks of his exams. He's actually failed 2 of his exams, and Siegfried throws him out, sacks him, as they say. And James comes up to his room and is like, oh, well, you need any help? Where are you going to sleep tonight? And he's like, oh no, he sacks me all the time. He throws me out. He throws me out of the house all the time and then just forgets. Yeah, that kind of thing. And then the next time you see them together, they're working together.
Everything
they're buddy.
Yeah. I looked it up, by the way. The 2 actors in real life, they're about 25 years apart in age. Mm-hmm. The actual brothers were like 4 years apart. So I don't know. I don't know why they picked those 2, but
I mean, they look reasonably, related. And I think, if you asked me, I would say that Tristan is early 20s and Siegfried could be 30, like he could also be 50.
Yeah.
But if you were to tell me, oh, this character's supposed to be 30, I'd be like, okay, sure.
Yeah. One's
supposed to be 22 or 24 and one's supposed to be 30. Okay, sure.
Yeah. I do think the age gap that they have makes a lot more sense for the older brother just railing at the younger one.
Yeah. Well, and
when you're closer in age, you don't do that.
Having had to spend many years sort of taking care of him.
Yeah. So I don't think that we ever meet their parents. Siegfried is always going to visit his mother.
Yeah, which I feel like is a plot point that will eventually turn out to be like, oh no, his mother's been dead for 30 years.
I don't remember it coming up because we read the whole first book for book club a while ago, and that did never come up. But to me, he does it several days in a row, and so I was like, this is code for he's got a girlfriend or he's seeing a hooker. I feel something.
For me, like if I'm writing this, there is he disappears for 3 days, and James goes to look for him, and he goes to the town, and he's like, do you know the whatever their last name is, and like, oh, they've not been around here for years, and he finally tracks down, and he somehow gets follows the clues, and he finds Siegfried in like an opium den, passed out like a la From Hell.
It's like a carefully arranged bender.
Oh no, let's go. We got to get you out. Like, he's just there doing, doing laudanum or whatever, like that kind of thing. It's just, he goes for a day to visit his mother.
Yeah.
And he comes back and he's great. He's fine. And then, because there is a point.
Tired.
There's
a
point where
his mother.
Yeah, there's a point where like the middle of the day, he's like, "Oh, you think you could take the on call tonight? Because I need to go visit my mother."
Yeah.
Wink.
And
wink.
you're like,
he's like, "Sure, yeah, no problem."
Yes. Yeah, I don't remember that ever coming up, but and you talk about TV framing and tropes and stuff like that. That's always a thing. Like the mother or some parent, it's usually the mother, who has this great influence on a character, but you never actually meet them.
Oh yeah, the psycho kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the downsides of living this far into the lifespan of an art form. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think it's true of any art form. I think it's true of like painting. I think it's true of music. I think it's true of writing. Like I imagine you as someone who reads a lot is reading a book, and at a certain point you're like, oh, okay, so that's the bad guy. Yeah. Like, okay, clearly this guy can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy, the main character is the only one who's ever acknowledged this person. This person's clearly in their head. Right. Like you are so versed in all of the tricks.
Yeah.
That there's just not anything left. And you eventually then enter a point where the writers and the artists start to use that against you.
Yeah.
They know, it's the, clearly I cannot choose the glass in front of me,
or it's like the Scream version. Of,
right. It's, the twist is they didn't do a twist.
Yeah.
Aha. Like that guy was never, and we've talked about that before. Like, I'm like waiting for this guy to turn, or subverting it with like, oh, Neil McDonough is in this movie and he never turned into the bad guy.
He's a nice guy the whole time.
Like, what the hell?
What?
That kind of thing. And I feel like watching this show was a good, even just the 2 episodes was a good sort of example of that for myself. Because I kept thinking, like, clearly going to visit his mother is some secret thing that will be revealed later.
Right.
Like clearly there is something, there are secrets here. There is something, clearly Siegfried is secretly struggling with mental illness, and that'll be that's a season 3 arc where they finally have an intervention, yada, yada, yada. You find out Mrs. Mrs. Hall has not been real the whole time.
Yeah.
That's, he finds a locket of their dead mother, and it looks like Mrs. Hall. And then James is like, but I've interacted with Mrs. Hall. And then James looks down and his blood all in his shirt, and he died in a train accident on the way to the vet in the very first episode.
Okay, I need this version to happen right now. That's fantastic.
This is my Pride and Prejudice with zombies. It's my all creatures great and small with a twist.
Yes. I do love Mrs. Hall, by the way. She's the housekeeper, and I think that's the British convention where any female servant with like authority is Mrs., even if she's not actually married. But she's so long suffering.
Oh yeah, she's a great.
She's clearly like
very tropish character.
Yes,
like just the long suffering housekeeper of a bachelor, a professional bachelor.
And there's like 15 dogs that live there. Yeah. And who always, anytime there's a knock at the door or the phone, they bark and they go to the, and people coming in at all hours of the day and night. And, like James shows up and is like, Mr. Farnan told me to come at tea time, which I don't know what time that is. I guess that's like 4. And she's like, he didn't tell me. Okay, well, come on in. So you never know who's going to show up or not show up, or who's going to eat the food you make or not. And given the way that Siegfried treats James about professional stuff, can you imagine how is with Mrs. Hall like today? Mrs. Hall, the breakfast that you make are far too heavy. Could you do something light? And the next day, Mrs. Hall, this is not nearly enough. I need some eggs.
I can't survive on fruit.
Yeah, and she's just like
yogurt.
Turns around and rolls her eyes and sighs and just deals with it. Yeah, I want something from her perspective, because that's gotta be pretty great. So yeah, I had a list of the characters, and it's James, Siegfried, Tristan, Mrs. Hall, and I just put farmers. Because there's a lot who come in and out, and some of them I think eventually probably become more recurring. But at this point, it's just various guys in tweed with thick Yorkshire accents who have animals. That's all. But the client and patient who stand out are Mrs. Pumphrey, who is this rich widow, and her dog, Tricky Woo, who is a Pekingese. And she has, more money than God. and has a house full of servants to order around. And the one that we meet is Hodgkin, who's like her gardener and various things.
Yeah.
And he probably hates her and definitely hates Tricky Woo.
Oh, yeah.
And
but was a very loyal,
yes.
Probably even, Mr. Pumphrey, saved him in India in the, in the battle of whatever. And he swore like a life debt. And here he is now in his 60s
and
taking care of this.
Yes, Mr. Pumphrey inconveniently died, but he still had to keep his oath of loyalty to, whatever.
I promise to protect your family forever.
I don't want to anymore, but I'll do it. I'm hoping for my last breath to come any day. I don't know what my accent is. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
So Mrs. Pumphrey treats Tricky like a child, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Overfeeds him.
Yeah.
Feeds him, I don't even know what. I mean,
she says at one point, he gets tired of his chicken.
Yeah. So probably fatty meat.
Yeah. And she'll feed him because sometimes he tires of his chicken.
Yes. And so the first time that we meet them, she calls and she has her own names for everything. And she says, "Oh, Mr. Farnan, please come see Tricky. He's gone flopbot," which we are told his anal glands fill up.
Yeah. Now, because of the bad food that he eats, the not dog appropriate food.
And they need to be he just lies down and refuses to go anywhere and they need to be expressed. Now, we had a dog for a while. I don't remember having to deal with his anal glands in any way.
No.
I think I would have remembered that.
Yeah.
So what is this just certain breeds of dogs who have this problem? I don't even know what an anal gland is, nor do I want to. Do cats have them? Should we have been dealing with our cat's anal glands this whole time?
No idea.
I don't know. But anyway.
No idea. You're the English major.
Not that kind of what? You dope. And here comes
that's just my new thing I'm gonna say every time.
Yeah. Here comes the cat to show us her butt and I'll see if there are any anal glands. Yeah. And of course every time the vets come, they're like, "Mrs. Pumphrey, you need to stop." She just won't do it. So this would be a great, very healthy, very active dog if he didn't get overfed.
Yeah.
And then later we hear about another ailment that he has. He goes cracker dog, and I don't know what that is. I assume that's like the zoomies, but I don't really know. But she's got this whole inner life for him. He's got a pen pal.
Pen friend.
Bonzo Fotheringham. He's a Dalmatian. He said he would, because he's descended from the blah blah king of China, but he decided he would interact with the common dogs. And I was like, a Dalmatian is not common. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Like a mixed breed. That's but maybe that's just too much for Tricky Woo. And he writes these long letters back and forth to the dog, and he sends hampers of treats to James and the Farnans after any visit. And I don't think this was in the episode, but it's in the book. James has to write thank you notes to, he sends a thank you note to Mrs. Pumphrey after one of the hampers comes. And she says, "You really should thank Tricky. He's the one who sent it to you. He was very hurt that you didn't acknowledge him." I mean, this woman is batty.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a level of baddie because she's rich. She gets away with it. And therefore I aspire to this. I just want to be able to order people around and they will do whatever I tell them because I have that much money. That just seems delightful.
That's a little unsettling to hear, but okay.
Well, okay. I never will achieve that. Sure. So, you don't need to worry about me fulfilling this.
I don't know. You're just one hit novel away from superstardom.
Right. I don't think so. Maybe I need to work with my cousin who's a vet and we can write a memoir of her experience. And then there'll be a theme park.
Yes.
There'll be
a themed park.
There'll be the Dr. Heekin experience with, and I don't think she does large animals. So you couldn't go through the cow's butt or anything, but I'll talk to her about it. We'll make it work.
You can express anal glands right there.
It'll be the interactive thing. Well, they have mobile games where people get to pop zits. Oh, yeah, I imagine anal glands are the same except different fluid. I really don't want to know.
I feel like next episode I need a 5-minute verbal book report.
Listeners, let us know we're talking the 5-second overview of what expressing anal glands is. I don't want to know in that much detail, but let us know. But Yeah, so Tricky Woo is one of the recurring patients throughout the whole thing. And I think, he lives a long life and, and every so often in the books, James will insist, Tricky the flop bot is so severe, he needs to be in hospital for a while. And so basically they just put him in there because they have like 15 other dogs. And I get the sense that that's like a rotating cast of dogs and it's never the same ones for very long. And they feed him regular food and he is forced to exercise with all the other dogs and he loses weight and he's healthy and he's happy. Yeah. And, and they give him back to Mrs. Pumphrey and she's like, oh, my dear Tricky, I missed you so much. And then she feeds him again and we start the whole cycle over again.
For sure.
But yeah, I never seen that actress before, but Mrs. Pumphrey is giving like Joan Plowright energy. A big fluffy old lady.
Sure.
So, or like the mom from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. So Mrs. Pumphrey is my favorite of all these. So, although in these 2 episodes, I also enjoyed the older man who he's not a farmer. He just lives in like an apartment who, his dog has to be put down. Yeah. He says his wife died and I don't remember if he has children, but he lives alone and he's pretty lonely and the dog is his only companion. And James has to be like, I'm sorry, your dog has cancer. He's suffering. We need to put him down now. And so the guy goes from, I love this dog, he's the light of my life, to my dog is dead in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we see a clip right at the end. He's got a new puppy.
Yeah.
And he gave it the same name. He's like, this one's Bob too. I just decided Bob was the best dog. So, it's just sweet. And that's one thing that I really like about the whole series is, now I've not been around cows or horses or sheep or, any livestock farm animals, but when you work with them every day, particularly like a horse who's a work animal, you develop some affection for them.
Sure.
And I imagine less like a beef cow who is going to end up on your plate eventually, but like a milk cow who you have for a while, like, their quirks and what they like and don't like, and and you develop some feelings for them. And so some farmers, I think, are described in the book as really like going out of their way to make sure that the animals are safe and healthy and to put them out of the misery and things like that. And then others are not. But it's very touching to see the ways that people love their animals beyond the dogs and cats. Mm-hmm. Or the tortoise, there's a little girl who shows up at the surgery, which is like the office hours at the vet's office, and she has a tortoise and she doesn't say a word.
Yeah.
We never find out what's wrong with the tortoise.
Just has them in a paper bag.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
James, for a lot of certainly these episodes, and I think a lot of the series, is just really kind of a straight man and doesn't show a lot of personality, but right there he was very cute because he was like, what's your tortoise's name? No response.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Mr. Tortoise. Okay, and like he actually handles it well with her, whereas a lot of the other times I'm just like, James, stop being such a stick. Like, come on, let's get it together.
Yeah.
So, let's see what else. One thing that I appreciate about this, and again, this may be just the times and not so much a choice on anybody's part. I appreciate that it feels very British to me and very Yorkshire because the accents are so strong. Downton Abbey, I think, was also set in roughly this part of England, but nobody on that show had such a thick accent that you couldn't understand anybody.
Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, I've said in other episodes about British movies and TV that I like when things are not Americanized for Americans. Like, you just have to deal with, they're talking about currency that you don't understand or terms or, whatever. And in this case, the accent. But this is kind of a thick accent, even if you are British, I think, some of the farmers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of local terminology. And, the one that we used to quote at home was at some point somebody comes in and he's like, oh, need you to come see to my dog. He's vomiting bad. Well, it's vomiting.
Yeah.
So whenever anyone was sick in the house, it was vomiting. So I like that it's not made clear. And part of it is that, James is new to all this and is completely confuzzled by the accents and the terminology and all this stuff. And so so you see it through his eyes, but it's, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, no, I like it too. Yeah. And it's all very, it's, as someone who grew up in the South and still have relatives in the North Carolina mountains, and had been at one time or another in my life to places like Ocracoke and these sort of places, like, yeah, there's a certain appreciation I have for the authenticity of accents.
Mm-hmm. And so I've never been to Ocracoke, but that, because it's a really isolated community on the Outer Banks, they have a distinct accent there too, right?
The Ocracoke brogue, as they call it. Yeah, it is, and it is, some linguists will tell you it is as close as you can get to what colonial Americans probably sounded like, and therefore what colonial British people probably sounded like. Now, granted, it has evolved over the years, but that is often said about just the Southern accent in general is probably close to sort of a revolutionary accent. But yeah, it is I can't even do it now from memory, but it is one of those things where when you see an interview and they're interviewing someone from Ocracoke, like they subtitle it. It's like that. Yeah. And then, there are characters in this that are, kind of like that. But yeah, I love that authenticity of accents and not being afraid to be like, look, just, you figure it out, man. Yeah. Like you're going to have to listen to it twice or use your context clues.
The specific words that this farmer says, not important. Yeah. Whatever.
And as you were saying, James, as a straight man, he's also the audience analog. So there are times where even he is like, there's a pause and then he's like, oh, okay, right. Oh,
yeah. Or sometimes he's totally faking it. He's like, oh, yes, absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
And then the person's like, no. Oh, no. I mean to say, of course not.
Yeah.
I get a little, if I think about it too much, I get upset about super regional accents like that. I'm thinking of Ocracoke, but I imagine Yorkshire too, being lost because with television becoming more widespread, and now, more social media, there's way more opportunities for kids as they're developing their speech to hear a quote non-accented speech. And so they don't develop the accent of the people that they're around quite as much. And then they don't have it and their kids don't learn it and it just sort of dies out. And it's this homogenization of the way we speak. And that goes for vocabulary and dialects too, but also just straight up accents. And it is a little bit sad to think about losing it.
It is. I mean, it's a little bit sad, but yeah, I mean, it's less than a generation to lose an accent like that. Like even within my lifetime, I have lost a North Carolina accent for the most part. And my mom's has lessened quite a bit, from what it was. And some of my relatives, it's lessened a bit from what it was. So I would still say that my mom's generation have an accent. It's certainly her and her sister. My uncle spent a lot of time straight out of high school in academic circles in New York and California and shed much of his accent, though I think in the years since he's been back here, some of it has kind of come back. And I think and that is a thing. Like if I get immersed in it, it'll, when I'm at work and I'm talking to a technician who is from, some place in Tennessee, I'll start to get back into it. Like, oh yeah, man, sure. That's definitely it. You got it, man. Go ahead. Just get on out there. I'll do what I can for you. And we'll get this done real quick.
Yeah, I can kind of tell when you're talking on the phone to somebody who you need to be a little bit of a good old boy with, not for work necessarily, but you say man a lot more. Like, oh yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's, and it is, it's a turn it on, turn it off kind of thing. Whatever they call it. What do they call that?
Code switching.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Because it is because there is amongst country people, there is a distrust of people who don't sound like them. There's an inherent distrust. And part of my job is to tell these people what to do. And changing up a little bit, it almost gives me a sort of an innate
it's an
authority that they would respect.
Yeah.
I've often been on calls. We used to have a guy who was from Ghana And I've been on calls with him where I literally just had to take over the call because they were having trouble with his accent. He was having trouble with their accents.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally just had to be like, all right, I got it, Leo. I'll take it from here, man. Hey, so we're just going to head over there and we're going to do this and we're going to do that.
You're putting on the twang a lot. Yeah.
I'll get you out of here in a minute, man. It's not going to take no time.
Yeah. Well, and they don't, we don't see that here in terms of accent so much because James, despite being from Scotland, doesn't have much of an accent the way it's portrayed here. I'm assuming in real life he did. And Siegfried, I don't know where he's supposed to be from, but he doesn't have much of a strong regional accent.
Yeah.
But he says he bought the practice about a year ago, and he has had to make headway with all the farmers trusting him.
Yeah.
And now James is facing the same thing. And so there is that kind of like, I don't know you, you're not from here, you don't sound like me.
Yeah. And it's in a lot of the clash between, and it makes sense in the time frame this is in of like, oh, my dad just said throw a sheepskin on him and he'll be fine, and then him saying like, no, it's that the pelvis is broken. Like, we'll see you go down to the butcher tomorrow and and there's that struggle. And in some cases, the struggle comes out in James's favor, and in some cases it doesn't.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. I imagine over the course of the series, and there is a minute in the early goings again with that like modern media literacy where Siegfried comes off as a scammer.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, have you seen this? You take some iodine crystals and you pour a little bit of this on it and boom, poof. And it makes a big poof. And, and then James is like, wow, and he's like, yeah, it puts the iodine deeper into the tissue. And he's like, wow, that really works. And he's like, I don't know, but they say it does. And it looks good for all these, it looks real cool. And for all these bumpkins, essentially, he doesn't say bumpkins.
Yeah.
But yeah, and at the first read, that's one of the earliest things you see. Like he's already been like fast talking in a sort of way. And one of the first things he does is start introducing James to all these modern techniques that are flashy, but do they work? And you're like, this guy is just scamming. But it turns out not really not to be the case, or at least through the 2 episodes I watched, is not the case.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, when we take our cats to the vet, they just take them to the back to do whatever. So I don't get to see like the plume of crystal on the thing, whatever. But I imagine because this is mostly large animal livestock stuff.
Yeah.
They're out at the farm and they're doing the stuff in full view of the owner. So there's a bit of theater, I think. And I think there might have been some episodes and instances in these episodes where the farmer's like, but you didn't do anything. Like, okay, but I diagnosed what's wrong with him and here's a pill to fix it. And if I hadn't, you would have to put him down. So like, I did in fact do something. You just, and honestly, I think a lot of skilled professions run into that. Like, yes, it took me 5 minutes to do that, but you know why it took me 5 minutes? Because I have 20 years of expertise.
Yeah.
So,
No, that working in support in for a ISP, for a service provider. Yeah. Sometimes a customer would spend an hour, because I was at the top tier of support. Sometimes they'd spend an hour troubleshooting with other people and they would get to me and I would immediately go, I see exactly what's wrong. Can you hold for 2 minutes? I'd come back 2 minutes later and like, check it. Oh, it's good. And of course their first reaction is, why didn't anybody else do that? Like, well, because no one else has the expertise that I have. Like that's the unfortunate thing is for you is that 90% of the people get their problem solved in that first hour. You were in the 10% that need to spend an hour checking everything else before you get to me. And by the time you get to me, I know that they've already done all those other things. Yeah. So there is a much small and convincing people that like, I became kind of good at it. I don't know if I'd say I was good at it, but convincing people that they didn't just waste, 90 minutes of their life for something that someone could have fixed in 2 minutes if the right person had been spoken to first.
Yeah. And you didn't even have to deal with sending them bills either.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Well, our support was free, but
that's what I mean.
Yeah. Like, yeah. So, but it's an interesting prospect, especially when you're up against these, run around her 3 times with a stick,
right?
Chant
under a full moon,
right? Yeah. Got a cat,
right?
Find a field mouse. I got you with that one. but yeah, it's not always apparent, especially I think as medicine gets better, it's not always apparent. I have like a $500 bill for like a sonogram heart thing, or whatever. And it's like, what, they just poked at me with a wand for 10 minutes and they're diagnosing some, possible heart issue. Like, what the hell? Like,
you didn't even do nothing.
They didn't do anything. Like,
Yeah, you see, and I'm sure a lot of things set around this time or any time in history where there was some innovation leap, right? You've got the plot of people mistrusting, and why do you need to do that? My father would have just done blah 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 blah. Like, Call the Midwife is set in, I would say it's in London, but it's also a poorer area, and I would say maybe similar attitudes between those patients and these farmers. And it's like 20 years later, it's the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But similar attitudes towards, well, I'm just having a baby. Why do you need to do all this stuff? Because you know how like 3 of your sisters died?
Right. Yeah.
We have the medicine to make that not happen to you, whereas before you're just like, well, it just happens, Yeah. So it's interesting to see how, and this, like I said, this happens at several points in history, but how people take to new innovations and the distrust. And, it's always a challenge for the practitioner. How do you get people to understand it and feel that they're not being taken advantage of and all that stuff? It's just an interesting sociological study of people.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Yes. So I feel like I need to watch the first 2 episodes of the new series and see how it compares, since I said that it was total crap compared to this. But one thing that I do know is they made Mrs. Hall in the new series younger. She's like not quite a hottie housekeeper, but like she's close to Siegfried's age. So there's this, I don't think they end up together in that, but it could happen. Like
maybe.
James, by the way, ends up married by, I think, the end of the first season to a farmer's daughter. And of course, he bumbles through their courtship and makes all these, mistakes and, says, oh, we're going to go to this dance. And then they go and the dance isn't happening. And this and and just like, does that sound like the James that you saw in these 2 episodes?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. By the way, this set sounds like a disaster because I think the actor who plays James was having an affair with the actress who played Helen, who is eventually who James marries. And there were several other things that I read a thing that said when they're drinking alcohol in this, which is frequent because they're either in the pub or they're having drinks at home, it was actually real alcohol. It wasn't like tea, which they do a lot. Yeah. I guess it didn't look right or, whatever. And there was something happened where the actor who played James broke like his pelvis or both his legs or something like that. And they were like halfway into the first season. And someone said, well, we just need to recast him. There's nothing we can do. And everybody was like, no, we're not going to do that. So they had to, like, he would just do the scene and he's standing still, like leaned up against the table. And then there's a shot to somebody else. And then off screen, they're moving him to where he needs to be.
Sure.
And you never see him move. Yeah. But he, it's like, oh God, I can't even
That's funny.
Imagine that. So yeah, this set sounds like it was crazy.
Definitely.
The affairs and the alcohol and the broken bones. Yeah. So, but regardless of all that, this is a good nostalgic memory to me. And I try to share it with everybody. I tried to show it to our son when he was 2, 3. He was just like, what? Why?
Yeah.
I don't.
Whatever.
What? Just cows. I can see those all the time on YouTube. I don't. Why are you showing me this? I don't.
Yeah.
So, which is always kind of sad when your kids don't love the things you loved. But when he is in 20 years, he's going to be showing his kids. I don't know what.
Look at what Kai Cenat did.
Right.
Man, look at this.
And they'll be like, Dad.
Let me introduce you to a little guy called Beautiful OB.
Or the elevator guy.
Yeah. This guy goes to car washes and rides elevators.
Dad. You're so lame, Dad.
No, look! He's at a place that he doesn't usually go.
No. That he very, very rarely shops at. Yes. None other than Walmart. Yeah, this is like 10 years ago. Our kid was obsessed with this, and I can still say that video almost word for word.
Yeah, that one particular video.
And we tried to show it to other people, and they looked at us like you were insane. Which honestly, they were correct. It was a bit of Stockholm syndrome.
It was just some slightly autistic 20-year-old who just loved elevators and car washes and just documented on YouTube. Yeah, I think it was actually called The Elevator Channel.
Yeah. He started with elevators, and then he added car washes, and he did travel too. And I was like, I bet he is a treat to have as your guest.
Here comes the Trifoam.
God. I do think of him every time I take the car in to be washed.
Oh, yeah.
Here comes the Trifoam. Anyway, sorry for that little juncture. But folks, we would love to know what you think of All Creatures Great and Small. I realize this is like a very small subset of you that have seen this.
Our demographics indicate a large British English viewership. That's
true. Actually. And I'm sure we have some listeners in Yorkshire. So what did we get completely wrong about Yorkshire? I'm sure a lot of things. Sure. So, but if you are about our same age, if you're in your late 40s, do you have the same fond memories of All Creatures Great and Small that I do? Does it track the same if you are British versus if you're American?
That would be the most interesting thing. I want to know. Yeah. What is this? Because this is like Dukes of Hazzard to them. Like it's a show about, for what Dukes of Hazzard is to me.
Yeah.
Like it's a show about your people. And what is that even like?
Do you watch this and think, oh, that's so sweet, or do you think, oh my god, this is so embarrassing?
Reminds me of my grandpa.
Yeah. Well, we would love to know your thoughts about All Creatures Great and Small, and tell us this series, the new one, the books. Have you been to the James Herriot themed park? Please tell me what it's like, and please, I want to know if they have plans to put in a roller coaster.
Yeah. Is it worth a visit from coming from America?
We could make it happen.
Yes.
I mean, we have so much cash on our hands now.
It's just it's everywhere.
Our economy is booming. It's the best.
It's totally great. Totally great. Yeah. So still struggling a bit with the coughing on the part of Marion, but we're working through it. She's
sorry. I think I'm headed to the doctor tomorrow.
She'll be well at some point.
Hope they don't have to put me down.
Yeah.
They're gonna poke and prod at me.
Yeah.
And,
they're gonna
put
let
some
me know,
crystals to like.
I've got a humane means in the car. I'll say, oh well, if you must.
Then bring her to the butcher and they'll cut her up. But anyway, folks, we would love to know what you think of this. You can reach us in a couple different ways. You can send us an email at YSMYpodcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours, at gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, same handle. Also on Facebook, we put links to our new episodes in the feed. We have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode. Next time, Dave will be hosting. And what are we watching next time, Dave?
Well, we're going to keep it in the land of the BBC.
Okay.
I am going to show you what I think is probably the best Monty Python movie. That is almost certainly not something I could defend to the Monty Python fans of the world, but I do think it's the best. It is like a long episode of Flying Circus. It is Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. Okay.
And yeah, we talked about this. I don't think that I've seen that one.
I'm almost positive that you haven't. If you don't have an immediate memory when I say this man is about to die, he's chosen the method of his own execution.
Nope.
Then if you don't immediately get an image when I say that, then you have not seen this movie.
I do not. I know Life of Brian because they have the People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front, which is fantastic because that's applicable to so many things now. Yeah. But yes, this is not that. Okay. Well, we will see you next time with Monty Python and the Meaning of Life. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.
St. Blaise, patron saint of throat ailments, pray for us. St. Isidore, patron saint of the internet, pray for us. I don't know who the patron saint of podcast is.